Hey everybody, Dabo Sweeney here, Clemson football. I got to tell you, been at Clemson 15 years, and we just had a guy speak to the team tonight by the name of Damon West, and just easily one of the top, most powerful messages that I've ever heard.
Did a great job of talking about servant leadership, did a great job of talking about choices, decisions, cause and effect of those decisions, and I think his story is very compelling because of the sacrifices that he had to make to get his life back where it needed to be.
Unbelievable presentation, and really a message that all teams should hear. Just watching my team and how he captured them was priceless.
The message about spirituality, the message about servant leadership, helping other people, the power of controlling yourself and what you do, what you say, is so, I think, important for these young guys to hear, and I've never heard it quite done as well as what Damien did it tonight.
The message that he delivered was so relevant, and right on, it was authentic and right on point. So Damon West, great story and very inspirational.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome my friend Damon West.
Awesome, man. Thank you, sir. Wow. It is so good to be in Dallas. Hey, first of all, wait, don't sit down yet. Put your hands together for my friend Sharif and Lisa Puss Carriage. Where's Lisa? She's somewhere in this room. They did so much work to make this happen today. Great team, great job. Yo, I got to the hotel last night and I was walking around and asking people from the conference, how's the conference going and what do you think so far? And let me tell you, every single person, the energy was so good, so high, so positive. And that's what I'm all about. That's what my message is going to be about, positive energy, changing your mindset. You know, I used to live in Dallas, by the way, and I'm going to tell you the story about that. I moved out of Dallas. I told some people in the elevator, they asked me where I lived. And I said, I used to live in Dallas, but I moved out in 2009. I left Dallas. But I'm going to tell you the reason why I left Dallas. So, how I got here today. There's a story I tell everybody all the time about, the only question you know the answer to is the one you don't ask. That's a guaranteed no, isn't it? And so, Sharif one day hits me up on Instagram because I go all over the country speaking to these college programs, speaking to corporations everywhere. So he hits me up one day. We started a conversation. And I'm like, hey, man, look, whenever you can have me come in to speak, let's do it. And it just so happened that today, at this time, was the right time for us to do this. He got in touch with me Monday, and here we are. So the story I want to tell you about, social media. Social media is one of your most valuable tools when used right. As a matter of fact, pull out your phones right now. My social media tag, and this is going to be a tag you want to follow because it's all about positivity, is at Damon West 7, DamonWest 7. It's the same for Instagram and Twitter. I have done so much business personally with getting out and speaking to corporations and teams and everywhere else by following people on Twitter and starting conversations in there. So don't be afraid to use social media. Please follow me because I've got social media positivity to put out there. So look, I want to jump into this story because I want to share with you today that no matter what your situation is in life, no matter what's going on, if you don't know what your purpose is, what your why is, I'm going to tell you that you can overcome that because the power to change is within you. The power to change isn't from outside influences. None of that stuff matters. That's noise. The power to change is within you. And it's the basis of that coffee bean book that I wrote. When the guy who wrote the coffee bean book got in touch with me, John Gordon, he said, Damon, we're going to write this book and it's going to be a bestseller and it's going to be, the coffee bean message will be all over the world. And it came true. The book is a bestseller. We get an email from the publishers every week. And it tells us, Wiley, the publisher, will tell us, hey, the rights have been sold in China. The rights have been sold in Korea. The rights have been sold in Vietnam and France and Germany. This message is going all over the world. And I want to share that message with you today. So let's start this story out 11 years ago. 11 years ago, right here in Dallas, Texas. July 30th, 2008. I'm sitting around this little rundown apartment in Dallas where I live, and I'm sitting on this couch, and I've got my meth dealer, this guy named Tex, sitting next to me. That caught you off guard, didn't it? Yeah. This clean-cut, polished-looking guy you see in front of you today, I'm an addict, y'all. I'm an addict in long-term recovery. But in 2008, yeah, recovery is good. Every addict needs a program of recovery. In 2008, I was a full-blown meth addict. And I'm right down the road in Dallas, Texas, and I'm sitting on that couch, and I got Tex, my meth dealer, sitting next to me, and I'm smoking that pipe, and I'm passing it back and forth. And I'm telling Tex, hey, Tex, I think the end is near, man. I think the cops are going to come get me pretty soon. You see, 10 days before this guy I'd been doing all these burglaries with in Dallas, this guy named Dustin, had been picked up by the Dallas Police Department. So I know it's just a matter of time before they get to me, and just as I passed the pipe back to Tex, I heard a window shatter off to my right, psh, and tumbling across my living room floor is this little canister going end over end. And it starts to register what's going on in my mind. It's almost like a slow motion reel from a movie as I'm watching that canister. And I got up off the couch, and I got over this thing, and BAM! The flashbang grenade goes off my face. Bright white light, loud noise, blows me back on the couch. And when I came to, when I could see and hear again, this cop in full SWAT riot gear, this Dallas police officer, had his boot on my chest, and the barrel of a machine gun is digging in my eye socket. And I can feel the barrel up against my eyeball, y'all. It's cold and it's stinging my eye, and he's got his finger above the trigger, and he's screaming at me, don't move, don't move. Man, I looked up at this cop, and I blinked, and I was like, man, don't worry, don't worry. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere, man. And so cops start flooding in my apartment, and one of them screams out, we got him. We got the uptown burglar. The uptown burglar. People from this area probably remember this story. The uptown burglaries, y'all, it doesn't matter how much good I can put back into the world, how much I can put back into the stream of life, and I certainly try every day. I will never escape that name, the uptown burglar. You see, about a dozen other meth addicts and myself, young and old, male and female, and black and white, and everything in between, because addiction and drugs don't discriminate. They don't care who you are, your race, your gender, your socioeconomic status. But we, indiscriminately and without reservation, broke into the homes of dozens of people in the uptown neighborhood of Dallas to feed our insatiable meth habits. But on July 30th, 2008, the uptown burglaries came to an end. They had their man, and they took me down to Dallas County Jail, where they processed me in, fingerprint, mugshot. And look at the guy in front of you today. No, that guy's dead. That's a transformation that happened, and I'm about to tell you the story of that transformation. Absolutely. If that guy can change to the guy you see in front of you today, then everybody in this room can achieve whatever you want to in life. I sat around that jail for 10 months waiting to go to trial. And at the end of 10 months, I got my day in court here in Dallas. May 18th, 2009, I got my day in court. Actually, I got 6 days in court. And 6 days is a long criminal trial in the state of Texas, man. It's a long trial for crimes where nobody was physically hurt, non-aggravated crimes. And at the end of 6 days, the jury of my peers deliberated for 10 minutes on my sentence. 10 minutes. I don't know how much Law and Order you watch, but if a jury's gone for 10 minutes, they smoked you. And when I came back into that courtroom, that judge who hadn't smiled the entire time was grinning from ear to ear. He gavelled it back in, bam, bam, bam. He said, Damon Joseph West, you are hereby sentenced to 65 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Life. 60 and above is life. I got a life sentence my first time out, my first felony conviction. Now, obviously, I didn't do life in prison. I did 7 years and 3 months in a maximum security penitentiary in Beaumont, Texas, and it was the roughest, hardest thing I've ever been through in my life, but it made me the man I am today. So let's back this story up. We're going to start off in Port Arthur, Texas, where I grew up. I grew up in a town called Port Arthur. My dad, Bob West, was a sports writer there, and my mom was a nurse, and I had an older brother named Brandon, a younger brother named Grayson. Nice, knit, little happy family, but we had problems too. I mean, everybody's family's got problems. 1985, I came out and told my parents that my babysitter had been molesting me. And this is childhood sexual abuse back in the 80s, y'all. They didn't know as much about it back then as they know now. So my family loved me. They sent me to talk to a counselor, a family priest, and we prayed about it. But something inside that little 9-year-old boy went to a really dark place, and by the time I was 10, I started putting in chemicals to change the way I felt. I started getting into my addiction. Drinking beer, I'm drinking liquor out of friends' parents' liquor cabinets, smoking cigarettes. By the time I'm 12, I'm smoking pot. So the worst part about this is I've got a bad belief system. And let me tell you something about bad belief systems. The longer you hold on to a bad belief system, the harder they are to get rid of. Because a bad belief system tells us how to do something the wrong way all of our lives. And it's hard to change that. And bad belief systems usually win out in the end. At 10 and 12 years old, my bad belief system was all I'm doing is drink a little beer, smoke a little pot. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not even hurting myself. But I couldn't have been more wrong. But hey, y'all, this is Texas. And God gave me a lightning bolt for a right arm. And I was a starting quarterback for my high school 5A team for 3 years in high school. Got a lot of breaks cut to me in life. Got a scholarship to play football right here in the Metroplex at the University of North Texas. Came here in 1994 to UNT. Played football there. And when I got to college, I lost sight of the important things in life because that foundation, that environment around me, my parents, my family, my town, was not there to keep me in check. And I really only cared about two things in college. I wanted to be the starting quarterback for my Division I team, and I wanted to party. And I did both really well. But life has a way of knocking you down, giving you these days that I like to call fork in the road days. And a fork in the road day is when life's knocked you down so hard, and when you get up and dust yourself off, the world looks different. Things are in different places, you know. But instead of me telling you about a fork in the road in my life, I want to show you my fork in the road. September 21st, 1996, we take the field against Texas A&M. I'm 20 years old. I'm the starting quarterback. I thought I had arrived until this day right here. Here's my fork in the road.
Damon West is the starting quarterback. Cromers is running back. They go with a single set back, two flankers, two tight ends. They go on a play action back to the 20, now to the 25. Now he'll run with it West across the 35 to about the 37. And they will come out and show a shotgun facing a second down and 4 from their own 37-yard line. A running back on either side takes the snap, delay out of the backfield, and that should be Hut Allred, and it is. Allred goes to about the 39-yard line. He'll be too shy of a first down. One of the linebackers for Texas A&M, Dan Wynn, a top 100 high school recruit, just made the hit for the Aggies. Again, a shotgun for Damon West. A running back Allred off to his left. Here's the snap. He drops back to about the 32, throws in the flats to Coleman. He makes the reception, and he will be bottled up at the line of scrimmage. He caught it behind the line at about the 38. He got to the 39, and that will be it.
First of all, do we have any Aggies in the room? I knew it, man. Everywhere you go in America, there's Aggies, man. They're great. They're great. I love the Aggies. Dave South, that legendary announcer from Texas A&M, he said that will be it. He's talking about the end of the series. We went 3 and out and had to punt. But when I hear Dave say that will be it, I think about my college football career. You see, I didn't get up after that last play. I separated my shoulder on Kyle Field that day, and I had to go in, and they had to cut my collarbone out, and I never played college football again. So when I got up to that fork in the road in life and football was gone, which I had put all my identity into being a football player, I made some bad choices at that fork in the road, y'all, because my bad belief system kicked in that, you know, drinking a little beer, smoking a little pot, well, now I'm doing cocaine, ecstasy, pills. I'm putting in every chemical I can to change the way I feel because I don't like being Damon West anymore if football's not attached. Somehow I graduated college in 1999. I move off to Washington, D.C. I get a job working in the United States Congress. After that, I go work for a guy running for president of the United States, and I raise money for him all over the country. And in 2004, when he dropped out of the race, I moved back here to Dallas, Texas, to train to be a stockbroker for one of the biggest Wall Street banks in the world, UBS, United Bank of Switzerland. And it was at that job as a training as a broker that I learned about different financial instruments with which to invest your money. You know, they've got stocks and bonds and mutual funds, but commodities. Commodities always interested me because commodity is a tangible thing. You can touch wheat, oil, platinum, gold, silver. But I learned about 2 commodities that are traded on the life exchange, not the stock exchange. Those two commodities are misery and time. That first commodity on the board, misery is the only thing in life that I've found that is free, y'all. And once misery is gone, all you got to do is tell life, give me more, and it'll give you all you want, man, by the truckload. Miserable people stay miserable because that is a choice. But time is antithetical to misery because time is the most precious resource in the world. And once it's gone for good. And all the money in the world can't buy one more second of this stuff called time. Tell you about misery and time. So it's 2004. I'm at that job as a broker, and I'm passed out asleep at my desk because I've been up partying for a couple of days. And this other broker comes up. He's freaking out. He's like, Damon, wake up, man. He said, you can't sleep on this job. They'll fire you for that. You're messing with people with money. The markets are open. He said, come on down to the parking garage. I got something that's going to pick you up. So I think we're going to go down to the parking garage and do a little cocaine because that was my drug of choice in 2004. But when we got into his car and he handed me that glass pipe with those crystal rocks in it, I freaked out on him. Like, man, what is that? He said, Damon, relax. It's crystal meth. He said, you'll love this stuff. And y'all, truer words have never been spoken. I fell in love with that drug that day. That's easily the most addictive, most destructive drug ever created by man. And I gave everything away for that drug. My job, my home, my car, my tethering to God, my sanity. I went from working on Wall Street to living on the streets of Dallas, y'all. Sleeping on park benches, sleeping behind buildings, living in dope houses with other dope addicts, because that's what I am, as a dope fiend. And we started doing property crimes. We started breaking into people's storage units. We started breaking into people's cars. And eventually, we escalated to home burglaries. And whenever I did burglaries, you know, my victims lost something more than their property. There was a lot of property that was stolen in the Uptown burglaries, but my victims lost way more than that. I stole my victims' sense of security, y'all. And anybody that's ever been the victim of a home invasion or a burglary knows exactly what I'm talking about. And they have to live with that for the rest of their lives, and so do I. But on July 30th, 2008, the Dallas SWAT team put an end to those Uptown burglaries, and that's the day they arrested me. As I tell audiences all over the country, that was the day they rescued me. They got me out of a situation I couldn't get myself out of. So now we're back where the story started, where they booked me in and they throw me into general population of county jail. And county jail in Dallas County was rough. I mean, they throw me in a bad pod. And a little guy like me goes in there and I'm fighting immediately. And I'm scared. And so I want to talk to my parents at this point. I don't even know if they know where I am. So I call home from jail. And my father answers the phone. My father's from an older generation of men. He's in his 70s. You know, I've never seen my dad cry. But I heard him cry one time when I called him from jail. And he was screaming and crying on the phone like, Damon, how we go so wrong, man? How we mess up with you so bad? And what could we have done different? So he's crying, and now I'm crying because I've broken my old man. So my mom gets on the phone. My mom's a nurse. She's a strong-willed Christian woman. She's got a great faith in God. So she grabs that phone, and she says, Damon, your dad can't talk right now. I've never seen him like this before in my life. She said, but we need to have a serious conversation. She said, Damon, we love you unconditionally. She said, there's nothing you could do to make us not love you, Damon. She said, that was the deal we made with God when he loaned you to us. She said, do you understand, Damon, that we love you unconditionally? And from that phone in Dallas County Jail, behind those tears, I was telling my mom, I was like, yeah, Mom, I got it. You love me unconditionally. And she said, that's good, baby, because we just gave you back to God. She said, you're property of the state of Texas now, Damon. We can't do anything for you. She said, but God can. She said, you are now a captive audience to God, and you better start listening. Then she asked me a question. She said, Damon, do you remember that prayer plaque that I had on your wall as a kid growing up? Dad, you got to know my mom. My mom was one of those moms that had a prayer plaque or a cross in every room in the house. I mean, she's got crosses everywhere. To this day, some of y'all may be moms like that. You may have had a mom like that. But that was my mom. But she's asking me about the one that was above my bed in my bedroom on Roanoke Street in Port Arthur, where I grew up. And I've been on drugs for 4 years. My brain's fried, and I can't even think straight. And so I was like, Mom, what are you talking about? What prayer plaque? She said, baby, it's footprints in the sand. She said, do you remember the story of footprints in the sand? And I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I don't know what you're talking about. And so she patiently and lovingly retold me the story of footprints in the sand about a guy walking on the beach with God, right? She said they're watching a video of his life play out in the sky, and she said every time something good happened in that man's life, there's two sets of footprints walking side by side. She said, but every time something bad happened, when there was pain, there's hurt, there's suffering, there's loss, things that happen in a human life, the guy saw one set of footprints. And finally, the guy calls God out. He says, God, what's up, man? Every time something good happens in my life, man, you're walking with me side by side. But when bad things happen, you keep abandoning me. I see one set of footprints. And she said, Damon, that's when God laughed and said, you fool. Every time you saw one set of footprints, I didn't abandon you. I carried you. Boy, she started screaming at me like a football coach. She said, Damon, get on God's back. She said, there's one set of footprints in that jail, and they're not yours. She said, get on God's back. I don't want to lose my son. So y'all, that night I started talking to a God that I hadn't talked to in 12 years since I got hurt in college football. And this isn't some kind of jailhouse conversion story, some kind of Paul on the road to Damascus. I'm way away from that at this point in my incarceration. I'm still an addict trying to get high and thinking about the day I get out. Matter of fact, let me tell you about what my prayer to God was in Dallas County Jail. The whole 10 months, I spent 13 months total in there. I'd get on my knees every night in my bunk in Dallas County Jail, and I'd say the same prayer. Dear God, please, get me out of this one. And if you do, I'm bargaining with God, right? Like that works. So, dear God, please, get me out of this jam. If you do, here's what I'll do for you, man. I got a great deal for you. Look, I'll be a normal guy again. I'll go get a job, and I'll just smoke meth on the weekends, man. I got this. Yeah. That's the best I can come up with, y'all. He never opened that email. It's like one of those spam viruses you don't open, right? And I know that because when I went to trial 10 months later, and that jury came back in 10 minutes with life, Man, it took my mom's breath away. I heard my mom gasp from the front row, the sound only a mother can make when she hears her son get a life sentence in prison. And after they sentenced me, man, everything sped up. The bailiffs were on me, the sheriffs were on me. They threw my arms behind my back. They slammed the handcuffs on me, drug me out of that courtroom head first. And all I could think to say on the way out of there is, "I'm sorry, Mom." They put me in this little room on the side of the courthouse. Got a bulletproof glass right there. They told me to wait. 5 minutes later, my parents walk in. They're going to give one last visit with me before I go to prison. My dad walks in at first. He's in stunned disbelief. He's stoic. He just saw his son with all this promise in life get a life sentence in prison. So my mom does all the talking. That strong-willed nurse, that Christian woman, she does all the talking. And she says, "Baby," she said, "debts in life demand to be paid." And that's a lesson of life. We all know that, right? If you owe a debt, you're going to pay that debt, right? She said, "Debts in life demand to be paid, Damon." And she said, "You did the things they said you did at that trial, though. So you have to go and pay that debt to society. You have to go to prison now, Damon. With a life sentence, you owe that debt." She said, "But you owe your father and I a debt too, Damon." She said, "We gave you all the opportunity, love, and support to be anything you want to be in this life. And this is how you repay us?" She said, "That's not going to work, Damon. That's not going to work at all. That's not fair to us." She said, "We raised you in Port Arthur, Texas, a giant melting pot of a city. Gave you a great moral compass, which you chose to not use. So here's the debt you're going to pay to us." She said, "When you go to that prison, you're going to get on God's back like I told you to." And she said, "You will not get in one of these white hate groups, one of these Aryan Brotherhood type gangs, because you're scared because you're a minority in there." She said, "That's not going to work." She said, "You will not get any tattoos while you're in there." Y'all, look, I spent almost 10 years in the joint, y'all. And those guys want to tattoo every inch of your body in prison. Those guys be like, "Hey, Wes, let me put a tattoo on you." And I'm like, "Man, my mom said no." So all the time. So my mom's telling me, she said, "Damon, no gangs, no tattoos." She said, "You come back as the man we raised, or don't come back at all." Tough love from my mom. Yeah. In fact, my mom, this book, The Change Agent, is about my life. My mom's really the star of this story, y'all. I mean, because addiction affects everybody. It affects the families the most, and my families went through hell with me. And so she said, "Damon, do you understand this debt you're going to pay?" And I said, "Yeah, Mom, I got it." But I had no clue what I just promised my mom, because I'd never been to prison before. So when I get back to my pod in Dallas County Jail, I'm asking all these guys in there that have been to prison before, all these other inmates, "Hey, man, how are we going to survive this?" And every single guy I talk to, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, is telling me the same thing. "Man, you're 33 years old. You're gang recruiting age. You're going to the worst part of the Texas prison system where everybody in the building you live on has life. And you don't come off the building, the life sentence building, for 5 years because they don't want you to escape. Man, make your life easy, Wes. Get into a gang. You don't really have a choice." But there was this one guy, this older African-American man named Mr. Jackson. And Mr. Jackson was a seasoned convict. He had been to prison 4 or 5 times. I think he was in his 60s. I never got his age, but he looked like he was in his 60s. And he had been to prison 4 or 5 times, but he was a real positive guy. And he'd come up and check on me every day and talk to me and keep my spirits up. So one morning he comes up, he says, "West, I've been watching how you're dealing with these knuckleheads, these dummies, talking about you got to get into a gang." He said, "Do not listen to them, man." He said, "You don't have to do that." He said, "But you need to understand that prison is going to be rough on you at first." He said, "And prison is all about race." He said, "So race runs the institution. So when you walk into prison, all the white gangs, the Aryan Brotherhood, the Aryan Circle, the White Knights, the Woods, they get the first dibs on you, man. You got to fight all of them. And if you survive all that and you don't give in to their ideology of hate out of fear, because we do a lot of things in life out of fear, y'all." He said, "Then you're going to have to fight all the black gangs because they're coming after you too, the Crips, the Bloods, the Gangster Disciples, the Mandingo Warriors. They're going to try to get you in line with your own race." He said, "But if you can survive all that, you will earn the right to walk alone." He said, "The strongest man in prison always walks alone." He said, "But you don't have to win all those fights, West, but you do have to fight all those fights." And that's a lesson in life, y'all. Nobody is that good to win all their battles in life. We are going to lose, and that teaches us character. That teaches us how to deal with loss. We grow from our losses. Growth takes place in an uncomfortable place outside of our comfort zones. And he's telling me, don't ever turn down a fight in there. And he can see in my face that I'm struggling with what he's telling me because, prison sounds like there's no way I'll survive. So he says, "West, I want to give you an analogy, man. Let me make this easy for you. Imagine prison as a pot of boiling water." He said, "Anything we put in that pot of boiling water is going to be changed by the heat and the pressure inside that pot." He said, "I want to put 3 things in that pot of boiling water that we call prison and watch how they change. A carrot, an egg, and a coffee bean. He said, first things first. He said, West, if I put a carrot into that pot of boiling water we call prison, he said, what happens to the carrot? And I said, well, it turns soft, Mr. Jackson. He said, that's good. He said, the carrot goes in there hard, but the water, prison, changes that carrot. He said, it gets beat down, it gets soft, he gets beat, he gets robbed, he may get raped, and he may get killed. He said, you do not want to be the carrot in prison. He said, what about the egg, West? I said, well, the egg turns hard, Mr. Jackson. He said, that's right. He said, the egg has a hard outer shell, so physically eggs are protected. They're fine physically, but inside, they turn hard too. That soft liquid core, their hearts become hardened. He said, if your heart becomes hardened, you're incapable of giving or receiving love. He said, if you are incapable of giving or receiving love, you have become institutionalized. And you do not come back as someone your parents recognize because your eggshell has swastikas tattooed all over it now. He said, what about that coffee bean, West? And I had no clue what happens to a coffee bean, right? And he laughed at me. He said, you know, for a college boy, you're not too smart. All that education I got didn't do anything for me now going to prison, y'all. So he said, for a college boy, you're not too smart, West. He said, if I put a coffee bean into that pot of boiling water we call prison, he said, now you got to change the name of the water to coffee. He said, the coffee bean, the smallest of these three things, small like you, West, had the power to change the entire atmosphere inside that pot. He said, everybody in life puts out energy, negative or positive. He said, whatever kind of energy you put out, you will attract back. He's explaining what's called the law of attraction. He says, so West, if you want to walk around prison and act like you're hard with a frown on your face all the time and like you're a tough guy, he said, what you're going to actually do is attract that same kind of person. He said, on the life sentence building, that can be a very dangerous, even deadly endeavor. He said, but West, if you walk around that prison with a smile on your face and you let those guys know they're not getting you, no matter what they do, they're not getting to you, he said, you will change that prison from the inside out. He said, the best part about that is the other coffee beans in prison, the other positive people, will find you because of your energy. And the last thing Mr. Jackson told me before I got on that prison bus, he said, West, go out there and go be a coffee bean. And y'all, with that, in August of 2009, it was like a secret I got to take with me. Didn't come with instructions, but in August of 2009, like I told some people in the elevator, I moved out of here in 2009. In August of 2009, I left Dallas County on a prison bus, headed to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. I became inmate West number 1585689. And y'all, if you get one of these in your pocket, you've had a bad day. And it's tough, man. Prison, by design, prison is a punishment. You know, I learned a lot about prison from my time in there. And since I've been out of prison, in 4 years that I've been out, I went back to school. I got a master's in criminal justice. In May, I graduated from Lamar University. I got a master's, yeah. And I'll actually, here's what's crazy, and I'm about to announce this on social media probably next week, is in January, I'll become Professor West because the University of Houston downtown is going to bring me into their criminal justice department to teach a class on prisons to the next generation of criminal justice practitioners. Isn't that crazy? God's world is crazy, y'all. That guy's going to be teaching a college class about prison. Pretty neat, huh? God is amazing, isn't he? But in this time right here, none of that stuff looks like it's possible. I go to prison, and it's every bit as hard as Jackson said it was going to be, and he was right. He said that race runs the entire institution, and he told me, you know, he said the first fight you get into is going to be the most important one. And y'all, the first 2 months of prison were brutal, y'all. And y'all, listen, from Dallas County Jail to the penitentiary, I probably got in 36 fights, and I physically lost 75% of those fights. I mean, I got my butt kicked all over that place. But I won because I showed up. I won because I got up every day and I fought. And not just the physical battles, but the mental and emotional battles too. But I learned a lot about myself from my losses, and I learned about overcoming adversity. That's something we talk about all the time, right? Overcoming adversity. Life is about adversity, but we have to overcome. We have to understand. I heard someone else talk about limits today. One of the speakers talked about never let anybody put limits on you. No, don't ever let anybody tell you what you can or cannot do in life. If you allow someone to put limits on you, then that is on you, man. So I'm in prison for 6 weeks at this point, and the first 2 weeks were spent on the white gangs. The next 4 weeks, I'm fighting on the black gangs, sometimes more than one at a time. So I went out to the rec yard one day, and I started this project to earn some respect on the basketball court because the rec yard's very segregated. There's no white guys allowed on the basketball court. But I went out there day after day after day, and after 6 days of this basketball court journey, I was finally accepted. I was finally taken in. And I was told, hey, you don't have to worry about fighting the rest of the time you're here, man. You're good with us. And after that was over, after I saw that the coffee bean stuff worked, because on that basketball court, everybody became coffee beans out there, and I knew that Mr. Jackson knew what he was talking about. But here's the thing. Mr. Jackson didn't give me an instruction booklet. He didn't tell me how to become a coffee bean. And at that point, 6 weeks into prison, I was becoming the egg. I was becoming the egg, and I didn't want to be the egg. And I had to find a way. So I got down to the chapel, and I met other positive people, because Mr. Jackson told me, if you want to find a lot of those coffee beans, get down to that chapel. There'll be a lot of coffee beans down there. And I found other positive people. And I found out that if I was going to change my life inside the hardest place ever, a maximum security prison, that it had to start with a mindset. And that's what we have to do. Our minds have to change. We have to change the way we think. Dabo Swinney, the coach you saw a while ago, he and I have become close personal friends. And of all the leaders I've met in this country doing this motivational speaking that I do, Dabo Swinney is the best one. And you know why? Because he's got the players and the people at Clemson and his staff believing that they can do it. A belief system that you can do anything you want to do. All you have to do is set out to do it. And the people around you, the team around you, is on the same belief system. But in prison, that's not a team sport. Prison was an individual sport. So I had to get to work on myself. I read a lot, y'all. I had to occupy my time. I changed my mindset to looking at prison as a punishment to looking at prison as an opportunity. An opportunity. Imagine that. I'm in prison. I wake up every day and I say, hey, this is great, God. I get an opportunity to work on myself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I got to work. I read a lot of books in prison. I was a voracious reader. I had to occupy my time. I read everything I get my hands on, a book every other day. History, fiction, nonfiction, the history of world religions. I found out there are 5 major religions in the history of the world. Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And at the core of all 5 of those religions are the same 4 spiritual principles. I've read every one of their books. The Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, the Torah, the Bible. I've read them all. There's 4 spiritual principles at the core of all 5 of those religions. Those 4 spiritual principles are unselfish, honest, pure, and loving. Unselfish, honest, pure, and loving. And what I have for myself was the first key to the puzzle of a matrix to plug every decision in. Because if I'm doing things that are unselfish, honest, pure, and loving, then I can't be over here on the other side where I've been all my life. Selfish, self-seeking, self-want, self-desire. And the worst one of them all, self-delusion. Self-delusion is when you believe your own garbage. You believe that voice in your head that says you're pretty unique, Damon. No. And I found out that there are about 5 ways of becoming a coffee bean. And you may find out there's more. But the first rule about being a coffee bean is the one Mr. Jackson told me. You have to have positive body language, y'all. Every room you go into, smile, especially when you don't feel like smiling, because your body language affects everybody in the room, whether it's negative or positive. You will infect or affect everybody in that room. And 2 things I learned about negative people in a room full of positive people. They will either, 1, start smiling and get with the positivity because people have an inherent need to want to be loved and belong, or they will get out of the room. And either one of them is fine for a room full of positive people. We don't want the negative people in there anyway. So the first rule I learned about being a coffee bean was having positive body language. The second rule about being a coffee bean was to get up and go exercise every day. And I'm not just talking about physically working out. I'm talking about working out in 3 areas: spiritually, mentally, and physically. Getting up and getting in shape every day, because growth takes place outside of our comfort zones. Growth is not a fun process. Growth takes place and it doesn't feel right. It's awkward at first. What does it mean to spiritually work out? That means at the end of each day, you have a conversation with God. And you say, hey, God, how was I today? Let's do a checklist. Do I owe someone an apology? Was I resentful today? Was I a good person? What did I do to put back in the stream of life? And one of the big questions is, do I owe someone forgiveness? And hold yourself accountable to this stuff. Hold yourself accountable to your God, because that is a spiritual workout not enough of us are doing out there. Mentally working out, what does that mean? Mentally working out means feed yourself the right stuff. We are what we eat. That's not just about food. That's about what kind of books you read. What kind of websites do you go to? What kind of videos do you watch? What kind of TV do you watch? Are you watching something on TV where people are just yelling at each other the whole time? If you are, change the channel, because that's doing nothing for you. Physically working out. That means we got to take care of ourselves. And we understand this. At Pure, we understand taking care of ourselves. Put the right stuff in. Get enough rest. You get one body, y'all. After that, it's over. So, the second rule about being a coffee bean is getting up and working out in these 3 areas every day. The third rule about being a coffee bean, and this was an important one. The third rule about being a coffee bean is the most important thing because it is the secret to life, y'all. The secret to life, in reality, has nothing to do with you. The secret to life has what can you do for other people. The secret to life is 2 words: servant leadership. Servant leadership is helping other people achieve their goals in life, helping other people reach a different destination in life, because when we're helping other people, we're really helping ourselves, and that's what we're called to do. Nobody got here by themselves, y'all. Nobody made it in life by themselves. I don't care who you are. You didn't get here by yourself. Someone helped you along the way. You have to find ways every day to put back in the stream of life and help other people. I had to do this in prison. I couldn't take college classes in prison because I had a bachelor's degree already. But I got to go to the schoolhouse, and I taught guys how to read, how to write, how to get them ready for the GED test so they could have better lives, you know? And my prayers changed. Remember that crazy prayer that I told you about in county jail? Get me out of here so I can smoke meth on the weekends? No, man. I got into recovery in prison. I got into a 12-step recovery program, and that's when I learned how to pray. I pray for the same 2 things today that I prayed for when I was in prison. My station in life may have changed, but my intentions in life have not changed. I ask God every day for 2 things, and I don't ask for anything else. I say, God, put in front of me what you need me to do today for you, and let me recognize it when I see it. And then I'm gone. I leave the house today, and I get going, y'all. Because that's what life is all about, finding ways to help other people out. And I promise you, if you do this, the universe will pay you back in dividends. The 4th rule about being a coffee bean. This was a big one for me because I have a big thing about control. I'm an addict, and I'm a very type A personality. I learned in prison that there are only 4 things you control. And the 4 things you control are in your mind. Those 4 things are what you think, what you say, what you feel, and most importantly, because everybody's going to see what you do. What you think, what you say, what you feel, and what you do. And if it's not one of these 4 things, then you don't really control anything, y'all. And when I learned this in prison, when I could learn to focus on these 4 areas, a lot of other decisions I was making that I had really no effect on because I thought I was the wizard behind the curtain, pulling levers and pushing buttons and manipulating everybody to do what I wanted them to do, but that's fantasy. That's in my head. When I focused on these 4 areas, everybody took notice. The inmates took notice. The guards took notice. Prison became a pot of coffee. And then the parole board took notice. November 16, 2015, the parole board comes to see me, and they're looking at my file. And they're like, the lady's like, Mr. West, we don't see a lot of people come through like you. She said, you had an amazing life. You know, guys like you don't usually come to prison. You had all this going for you in life, and you get involved with drugs, and you make these bad decisions. You get this big sentence, but you come to prison, and you transform the prison around you. She said, I've got one question for you, Mr. West, and in my mind, this is the one question that's going to decide whether or not I go home, whether or not I make parole, right? She said, if you could be remembered for being anything in this life, she said, give it to me in just one word, go. And y'all, because I was a coffee bean, and because I knew what my place was in this world, because I knew what the secret to life was, servant leadership, I had her answer for it. I fired off right back at her real quick. I said, useful. I just want to be useful, ma'am. I could be useful in here in this prison, as you've seen, or I can be useful out there in that world, going out there and finding coffee beans. And she said, you know what? We're going to let you go. We're going to give you one shot. She said, we're going to let you go conditional that you don't ever come back in handcuffs anywhere in America between now and the year 2073. We'll keep you until the year 2073. Y'all, they let me go on November 16, 2015 on a lifetime of parole. I get off parole in 2073, y'all. Yeah, but I'm okay with that. Yes, I'm okay with that. No, that's fine. Because now I'm out here having a positive, I can be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. And that's all I ever wanted to be. And there's so many people in prison that just want to get out and be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. But it was whenever I was out of prison that I learned what that fifth rule about being a coffee bean was, because all these ideas I had in my mind about what the world was going to be like when I walked out, would I ever be accepted? Would I ever get a great job? Would I ever be able to go out and share this message like this? Would I ever find love and find a family? All that stuff God has taken care of, because I get up every day and I ask him the same question. What can I do for you, God? And that fifth rule by being a coffee bean is this. Your past does not define you. That's right. Your past doesn't define you. I don't care what you've done. I don't care what your past wins are or what your past losses are. Your past is your lesson. Man, we learn from our past, all right? We don't dwell in our past. There's a reason why the windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror, y'all. Your past is your lesson. You learn from your past. The present, today, that is a gift. You make the most of today because not everybody got another day. You make the most of today. Find out what you can put back in the stream of life. Find out how you can be a better human being, a better servant leader, a better person. The future, man, the future is your motivation, you know? The future is your motivation. That question we always ask, what is your why? That's your future. Ask yourself every day, what is my why? Because that's my future. Because the decisions you make today will affect your life tomorrow. Your past is your lesson. The present, today, is a gift. And the future, man, that's your motivation. That's your why. So here's all the 5 rules about being a coffee bean, the 5 life lessons. And you know, my story, The Change Agent, the book, The Change Agent, goes over all this stuff. And the book, The Coffee Bean, is about, you know, taking that message. It's about a kid named Abe, you know, and the word prison isn't even in that book the whole time. But it's a best-selling book because any team, organization can use that coffee bean lesson, right? Because the coffee bean is what we all strive to be. So here's my call to action to you. My call to action is this, y'all. You go out there and you go share Mr. Jackson's coffee bean story. That's not my coffee bean story. That's Mr. Jackson's coffee bean story. And Mr. Jackson, you know, Mr. Jackson and I, our pot of boiling water is different than your pot of boiling water. Our pot of boiling water is prison. Your pot of boiling water is life, the same one I have today. And life is going to turn the heat up. And when it does, how will you respond? You talk about that carrot that turns soft. No one wants to be the carrot, but I've been the carrot before, y'all. I've been the carrot, and so have you. You tell them about the egg that turns hard. The egg turns hard, y'all. No one wants to be the egg, man. The eggs are mad, they're miserable, but I've been the egg, y'all, and so have you. But you tell them about that coffee bean, and when you do, when you talk about this coffee bean, man, you get animated, get excited, because the coffee bean jumps into that pot of boiling water and says, you know what? Turn it up. I've got this. And the longer that coffee bean sits in that pot of boiling water, the stronger your pot of coffee is going to be. So my call to action to you today, Pure, is you go out there, go all over the country and all over the world, and every place you came from, you go out there, and I'm going to give you the same advice Mr. Jackson gave me 10 years ago when I left Dallas County Jail, went to prison, and got on that prison bus. Go out there and go be a coffee bean. Y'all, thanks a lot. Thanks for letting me talk today. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dallas. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Damon West, everybody.